What if I told you that the biggest mistake you made today happened the moment you opened your eyes? You see, most people wake up and immediately start running. Mentally, they grab their phones, scroll through other people's lives, compare their problems, their bodies, their goals. And in that very moment, they lose. Not to the world, not to their job, not to the expectations piled on them, but to themselves, because morning is your opportunity, and you gave it away before your feet even hit the floor. You think success begins at 9 a.m. No. Success begins the second your eyes open. It starts with your breath, your posture, your mindset, your habits. That's the moment when the battlefield is quiet, and you get to choose how you show up to your life. That's not just a sunrise, that's a reset. And yet, most people treat their morning like it's disposable. Something to sleep through, scroll, snooze through. You want a different life. Then live differently. Start with the first hour that belongs to you. Because if you don't own your morning, you've already handed the rest of your day to someone else. When I was in the Secret Service, we didn't wake up wondering how to feel about the day. We woke up with discipline, clarity, and a mission. Why? Because when your job involves protecting lives, you don't have the luxury of being casual with your time. And here's the truth most people miss: you are protecting a life too. Yours, your dreams, your potential. You may not be taking a bullet, but you are taking hits from distractions, from comfort, from everything that tells you to stay where you are instead of rising to where you're meant to be. You don't need a badge to live with purpose. You need a decision, and it starts each morning. What if I told you that the moment you open your eyes, you're already in a fight? Not against the world, not against your job, your schedule, or the 100 things you need to do. You're in a fight with yourself, and most people don't even realize they've already lost it by the time their feet touch the ground. That very first moment, when your eyes open, when your mind is still foggy, when your hand reaches for the snooze button or your phone, that's your first real decision of the day, and it matters more than you think. Because that choice, that split-second decision, is where the tone of your entire day is set. It's where leadership begins. Not the kind where you stand in front of others, but the kind where you take command of you. You can't talk about being strong, resilient, and focused, and then start your day by avoiding it. That's not discipline. That's comfort. And comfort is the thief that steals your edge before the day even starts. You think the battlefield starts when you walk into work or face your challenges. No, it starts in bed. It starts when you decide whether you're going to act according to your feelings or according to your mission. And make no mistake, every time you choose comfort first thing in the morning, you're training your mind to fold, to flinch, to follow instead of lead. This is the version of the game that nobody talks about. Because it's not sexy, it's not loud, it's not applauded. It's quiet, private, personal. But those small wins, getting up when you said you would, resisting the distractions, moving your body, directing your thoughts, those are the wins that separate the average from the elite. That's the moment when most people give their power away. But if you can win that moment, you've already set the standard for how the rest of your day will go. You don't build mental toughness in chaos. You build it in routine. In the morning, when the rest of the world is still asleep and your excuses haven't had time to wake up yet. That's when your identity is shaped. That's when you either train your mind to submit or to lead. Most people don't even realize how much power they've handed away before the sun's fully up. The minute they wake, they reach for their phone, and in that split second, they give their mind away to someone else's life. Notifications, emails, texts, social media, all of it starts pouring in, hijacking your focus, shifting your priorities, and clouding your clarity. You're not thinking for yourself anymore. You're reacting. You've just let the outside world invade your internal world before you've even had a chance to set the tone. And that's how people lose their edge. It's not dramatic. It's not obvious. It's subtle, quiet, but deadly to your discipline. Because when you start your day by consuming instead of creating, you become a follower. You follow other people's opinions, their problems, their energy. You start carrying things that don't even belong to you. And then you wonder why you feel anxious, behind, scattered, like something's always off. It's because you let the noise in before you built your own foundation. You let the world tell you what matters before you decided what you value. People think distraction is harmless. But it's not. It's training. Every time you scroll first thing in the morning, you're training your brain to crave reaction, not action. To seek stimulation instead of structure. And that destroys focus before it even has a chance to show up. You can't talk about having goals and clarity and confidence when your morning is full of mental clutter. That's like trying to build a house on sand. It doesn't matter how hard you work later in the day, your foundation is already weak. You want to be sharp. Then guard your mind like your life depends on it, because it does. The world doesn't care about protecting your energy. That's your job. So stop wasting the most powerful part of your day on meaningless input. Start owning it. Put your phone down. Get still. Get clear. Lead yourself before the world has a chance to lead you. That's where discipline begins. That's where control is built. And that's how you stop reacting to life and start commanding it. There's a reason the most successful, focused, and grounded people protect their mornings like their lives depend on it. Because they do. That first hour isn't just another part of your day. It's your foundation, your launch pad, your mental armor. It's where you decide who you are before the rest of the world tells you who to be. And the truth is, if you don't own that space, someone else will. Your phone, your inbox, your obligations. They'll all come rushing in and hijack your direction before you've even had time to breathe. That's not leadership. That's surrender. You don't control your life if you don't control your day. And you don't control your day if you don't control your morning. It's that simple. You can dress up success however you want, but it always comes down to structure and standards. That first hour is sacred. It's when your brain is the most impressionable. Most people waste it on autopilot, but the few who treat it like the battlefield it is, the few who move their body, speak power into their thoughts, and get clear on what matters, those are the ones who win not by accident, but by design. You think your mood is random. It's not. It's built. It's programmed by the rituals you keep, especially in the morning. When you own your morning, you stop reacting and start choosing. You stop chasing and start building. That shift, right there, is what separates amateurs from professionals, victims from warriors, talkers from doers. And it's not about perfection. It's about intention. You don't need a 2-hour ritual. You need 10 minutes of clarity, 10 minutes of quiet strength, 10 minutes where the only voice you listen to is your own, grounded, calm, focused, and ready to lead. Because that's what owning your morning really means. It's not just a routine. It's a declaration. A commitment that you get to choose how your day begins, how your energy shows up, and how your mind performs. And when you do that consistently, day after day, the world starts to respond differently. Not because it changed, but because you did. Success doesn't show up when the clock hits 9 and your workday begins. It starts the moment you decide to rise with purpose, not pressure. That space between sleep and responsibility. That's where the real work begins. But here's the part most people miss. If you wait until the world demands something from you to become disciplined, you've already lost your edge. Discipline isn't reactive. It's proactive. You build it when no one's watching, when no one's asking anything from you, when it's just you, your thoughts, and a decision to either lead your day or be dragged by it. When I worked in the Secret Service, we didn't wait for the mission to begin before we got sharp. We were sharp before we stepped into the room. Why? Because preparation is protection. And in life, that applies just the same. If you want to thrive, you have to be ready before the hits come. Your morning isn't a warm-up. It's the first round. And if you walk into it lazy, distracted, or unclear, you've already set the tone for how the rest of the day will treat you. You can't rise strong if you start scattered. That's the truth. The world rewards those who show up already centered, already moving with intention. You think energy just shows up when you need it. No, you create it. Through movement. Through mindset. Through small, decisive actions that send a message: I'm in charge today. That's how professionals operate. That's how leaders move. They don't wait for permission. They build readiness into their morning, so by the time the world starts throwing punches, they've already won the internal war. So no, success doesn't begin with the world. It begins with you, before the first email, before the first meeting, before the chaos starts. It begins in that silent space where you choose discipline over delay, mission over mood, and excellence over excuses. That's where the winners live, and they build it before the sun even rises. Every morning you wake up, life hands you a reset button. But most people sleep right through it. They don't realize that each day is a brand new contract with themselves. You get to choose who you are, how you think, how you show up. You're not locked into yesterday's mistakes, emotions, or limits unless you decide to carry them with you. That's what most people don't understand. They drag yesterday into today and wonder why they feel stuck, heavy, uninspired. But the truth is, the moment your eyes open, you've already been given a clean slate. What you do with it, that's your responsibility. There's real power in the morning, because before the noise, before the distractions, before the world starts pulling at you from every angle, you're free. Free to think clearly, free to build intention, free to reset your mindset and recalibrate your direction. But here's the catching: it doesn't happen on its own. That reset button only works if you push it, and most people don't. They stay stuck in patterns that no longer serve them because they've trained themselves to repeat, not to reset. You want a different life. Then you have to make different choices, and that starts in the first 10 minutes of your day. You can't change the past, but you can break the pattern, and the way you break it is by anchoring yourself in new behaviors the moment you wake up. That's when your subconscious is the most open. That's when your brain is quiet enough to listen. So speak something powerful. Move, decide. Don't drift into the day. Command it. That's how you shift from existing to leading. That's how you stop living on default and start living on purpose. You don't become your best self by accident. You become her by choice. Over and over again. And the most powerful choice you make isn't loud. It's not public. It's not posted online. It's made in the quiet of the morning when no one is watching, and you decide, I am not who I was yesterday. I'm better, stronger, focused. That's the gift of every morning. A chance to reinvent, to rebuild, to reframe. You don't need a new year. You need a new standard. And it starts with the first breath, thought. The first step you take when the world is still quiet and your power is fully your own. Confidence is not something you stumble upon. It's not handed to you, it's not genetic, and it's definitely not something you buy or fake your way into. Confidence is earned through hard decisions, relentless discipline, and the quiet choices you make when no one is clapping for you. And the truth most people don't want to hear is this: if you want confidence, you have to build it, layer by layer, day by day, and it begins in the first hour of your morning. That's where it lives. That's where it's either being formed or destroyed. Most people think confidence comes after success, after things start falling into place. That's backwards. Confidence is what creates success. It's what carries you through the moments when things aren't falling into place, when it's hard, when it's early, when it's uncomfortable. And you don't build that kind of grit by luck or motivation. You build it by choosing to do what's necessary, especially when it's inconvenient. Especially when it's early and cold and no one else is watching. The way you speak to yourself in the morning. That's programming. The way you show up for your own commitments before the rest of the world even wakes up. That's integrity. And the way you move with purpose when it would be easier to hit snooze, roll over, or scroll your way into someone else's story. That's where confidence is born. Because deep down, we all know the truth about ourselves. You can't fake discipline to your own reflection. You either did the work or you didn't. And your confidence, or your lack of it, will tell the truth before you ever open your mouth. It's not about being perfect. It's about being consistent. Discipline is what teaches your brain that you can trust yourself. That when you say you'll do something, you do it. And that trust builds a kind of confidence no external praise can match. Because when the storms hit, and they always do, you don't crumble. You don't fold. You stand grounded in something real, the proof that you showed up when it counted, that you've trained for the moment, that you're not winging it. You've earned it. You see, most people try to borrow confidence. They dress it up, they speak louder, post more, act bolder. But underneath it all, there's doubt, insecurity, because they haven't done the work required to actually believe in themselves. And that's the difference. Real confidence comes from doing hard things, especially when no one's clapping, liking, or validating. It comes from doing the work when no one is giving you permission and no one is reminding you why. You get up. You grind. You build, quietly, consistently, relentlessly. And where does that begin? In the morning, in the very first moments of your day, when you could choose to coast but instead choose to lead. When you move with purpose while others delay. When you speak life into yourself instead of waiting for the world to affirm you. That's not motivational fluff. That's war strategy. Because the enemy isn't out there. It's in your excuses, your doubt, your fear. And if you don't confront it first thing in the morning, it grows louder as the day unfolds. Confidence is a mirror. It reflects what you repeat. And when you repeat power, discipline, and ownership every single morning, that's what your mind starts to believe. It's not about hype. It's about identity. Who are you when no one's watching? What standard do you hold when it's just you and your alarm clock? That's where confidence is either fortified or fractured. You've got to understand that when you hit snooze, you don't just delay your morning. You delay your momentum. And momentum is everything. It's the compound effect of small wins that build into unstoppable belief. Every morning is a chance to start that chain reaction, to make one powerful choice that triggers another. To decide, I am the kind of person who shows up. Period. And over time, those choices become who you are, not what you do who you are. Confidence doesn't need applause. It needs proof. It needs evidence. And that evidence is built in the quiet, in the dark, in the hard, when it's just you and the decision to rise, to keep the promise you made to yourself, to run toward discomfort when everything in you wants ease. That's where the real transformation happens, not in grand gestures, but in those small, repeated acts of self-respect. You think waking up early and pushing yourself is about fitness or productivity. No, it's about power, psychological power. Because when you learn to win the morning, you carry that energy into everything you touch. You walk into rooms differently, you speak differently, you think more clearly, you lead differently. And not because you're pretending, but because you've proven to yourself over and over again that you are capable of hard things. You become undeniable. Not because you say so, but because your presence says so. That's what real confidence feels like. Quiet, grounded, unshakable, built on thousands of choices no one ever saw but you never skipped. It becomes part of your identity. You stop asking, can I do this? And you start declaring, I've done the work. I'm ready. And here's the thing. No one is coming to do this for you. No one's going to tap you on the shoulder and give you confidence. You have to build it with your own hands. And you start by showing up. Early, focused, and with a standard. You start by not negotiating with weakness. You start by making the decision every single morning to be the kind of person who takes the hard road because you know what's waiting at the top. You don't need anyone's permission to rise. You don't need perfect conditions. You need one thing. Decision. The decision to treat your morning like the training ground for who you're becoming. You want to be elite. Then train like it, think like it, move like it, live like it. Because every morning, you are either reinforcing the identity of someone who follows through, or someone who folds. The world won't always reward you for that, but life will. Doors will open. People will feel your presence. Opportunities will find you, not because you're lucky, but because you're ready. Confidence doesn't come from talking. It comes from doing the hard. Doing the early and the unseen, until one day that quiet discipline turns into loud results. And by then, you won't need anyone to tell you're strong. You'll already know. There is a version of you that's faster, sharper, more focused, more relentless. And that version isn't found in comfort. It's not sitting on the couch. It's not found when you're scrolling or waiting for inspiration to strike. That version is buried deep inside the hours most people avoid, in the early mornings, in the quiet before the chaos, in the uncomfortable space where most people would rather hit snooze than rise. That's where your edge is built. That's where strength is forged. Not in ease, but in effort. The sharpest minds, the strongest bodies, the most unshakable people. None of them became that way by accident. They didn't stumble into resilience. They didn't coast their way into discipline. They created it by making the same hard decision over and over again to get uncomfortable on purpose. Especially when it was dark, when it was silent, When it would have been easy to quit or delay or wait for motivation, they showed up anyway. Because they understood something that most people miss. Your highest self lives on the other side of discomfort. Most people think growth happens in the spotlight. It doesn't. It happens when you do the reps when nobody's clapping. When you train while everyone else sleeps. When you move when you don't feel like it. That's the secret. Your mind remembers. It keeps score. Every time you override comfort, you're sending a message to yourself: I don't just want this. I'm becoming this. And that identity, that internal truth, becomes armor. It becomes unshakable. You stop needing outside validation because you've already seen what you're capable of. You built it in the dark. It's easy to talk about growth. Everyone talks. What separates you is whether you're willing to meet your limits and then push beyond them. That means setting the alarm a little earlier. That means saying no to ease and yes to grit. That means doing what others won't so you can become what others can't. And no, it's not comfortable. It's not supposed to be. Comfort is the enemy of greatness. It seduces you with temporary peace while stealing your long-term potential. The real you. The you that doesn't flinch under pressure. That doesn't break when it gets hard. That leads with clarity and courage. That version doesn't show up because you wished for it. It shows up because you earned it. Because you walked into the fire while others avoided it. Because you looked discomfort in the face and said, "You're not stronger than me." You don't need perfect conditions to become who you're meant to be. You need courage. You need the kind of internal fire that says, "I'll do what's necessary, even when no one sees it." That's how you create a life you respect. That's how you build a mindset that can't be shaken. By doing the exact thing your old self would run from. Every morning is an opportunity to face that edge. To step into the hard thing and say, "This is where I grow. This is where I rise." The hours you avoid, the ones where it's cold, early, inconvenient, those are the hours that shape your character. They shape your grit. That's where your advantage lies. Not in talent. Not in luck. In your ability to consistently step into challenge while the rest of the world sleeps through theirs. That's how you lead. Not just in your results, but in your standards. Not just in public, but in private. So if you want more from your life, stop searching for easy. Start searching for resistance. Because that's where you'll find the version of you that doesn't settle. The version that holds the line. The version that doesn't apologize for her strength because she earned it. Rep by rep, hour by hour, in the exact moments others were hiding from the very work that made her unstoppable. Motivation is fleeting. It's emotional. It shows up when conditions are perfect, when the weather's nice, when you've had enough sleep, when things feel aligned. But discipline is different. Discipline doesn't care about feelings. It doesn't check the temperature. It doesn't ask how tired you are, and it doesn't wait for inspiration. Discipline shows up, no matter what. And that's what separates the people who talk from the ones who build. The people who dream from the ones who execute. If you rely on motivation to get up, to move, to train your mind, to do the hard things, you've already lost. Because motivation is a mood, and moods change. Discipline is a muscle, and muscles grow with resistance. So when you wake up and you don't feel like doing it, that's not the problem. That's the opportunity. That's the exact moment when you train yourself to rise anyway. That's where you earn your edge. That's where you teach your mind. I lead not my excuses, not my feelings, me. Most people are stuck because they wait to feel ready. They sit in bed negotiating with the alarm, telling themselves, just 5 more minutes. But 5 minutes becomes 10. 10 becomes a rushed morning. And before they know it, they've started their day in defeat. Led by comfort instead of character. That's how days are lost. That's how habits die. Not from a big fall, but from 100 quiet negotiations with weakness. And every time you let that slide, you reinforce it. You teach yourself that your comfort matters more than your commitment. Discipline is what makes sure that doesn't happen. It's what makes sure you're consistent when motivation is nowhere to be found. And here's the secreting: no one is naturally disciplined. It's not something you're born with. It's something you build. And you build it by getting up when you don't want to. By showing up when there's no applause. By keeping your word to yourself, even when no one would know if you broke it. That's what it really means to lead yourself. Not when it's convenient, but when it's necessary. Because life isn't going to wait for you to feel like it. Challenges won't reschedule themselves because your mood's off. And success isn't going to show up and knock just because you posted about wanting it. It shows up for the people who train for it. Who do the reps. Who wake up and go to war with their comfort every single morning. So if you're sitting there waiting to feel motivated, stop. You're waiting on something that doesn't owe you anything. What you need isn't a feeling. What you need is to get up, take action, and repeat. That's how discipline is built. That's how you become the kind of person who doesn't need hype to move. Who doesn't need permission to rise. Who doesn't rely on inspiration to lead. Because discipline becomes who you are. And once that's built, you become unstoppable. Not because you feel like it, but because you decided to be. There's a moment every morning before the chaos begins, before the notifications, the emails, the pressure, the noise. And that moment is sacred. That's your space. That's your time. That's the one part of the day where you have complete control. And if you're not using it with intention, you're wasting the most powerful weapon you have. Because what you do in that quiet, how you think, what you say to yourself, the energy you generate, that becomes your anchor for the rest of the day. That's where you either train your mind to lead, or you let it default to whatever the world throws at you. Most people wake up and immediately hand their mind over to distraction. They let the world set the tone. They don't even realize it, but the minute they check their phone, their energy is no longer theirs. They're reacting instead of commanding, following instead of leading. And they carry that same scattered mindset into every room they enter, into every decision, every interaction. That lack of mental clarity, it starts right there in the morning, in that window they didn't protect. You don't build focus in the middle of the storm. You build it in the calm before it hits. So here's the truth most people run from. You don't need more time, more motivation, or more chances. You need to take ownership. Complete, unapologetic ownership of your mornings, because that's where everything begins. Not just your schedule, but your mindset, your standards, your identity. The way you show up in those first quiet moments determines how you face everything that comes after. And if you want to rise, if you truly want to lead, evolve, and become unshakable, then it starts by refusing to give away the most powerful part of your day. You don't rise by accident. You rise because you choose to. Not once, but every single day. In the quiet, when no one is watching, when no one is clapping, you choose to step into the uncomfortable. You choose to speak life into yourself. You choose to lead when it would be easier to hide. That's not motivation, that's command. That's power. That's the discipline that separates those who say they want it from those who live like they do. Your morning is not a routine. It's your proving ground. And every day you wake up, you get a new opportunity to prove to yourself who you are. So don't wait, don't negotiate, don't delay your power. Get up. Lead, because morning is your opportunity, and once you take it, there is nothing, not one thing, that can stop you.